of walking meditation in a bit, but there's time for a question or two. Any things I've been saying could use a bit of clarification, or anyone has any particular doubts or things they'd like to ask about? Yes.
In my meditation practice, and I think for a lot of us, you actually see fairly quickly how the emotion doesn't actually last very long. But I find that at this point in my life, that's not fully translating into non-formal practice somehow. Is there something you could suggest about non-formal practice as you're sort of having those emotions arise?
Could everybody hear the question? No. Okay. So what our friend was asking was that first of all, it seems that when you look at emotions, that often they don't last that long when you're in formal meditation. But in the ordinary run of activity outside of formal practice, then it can be harder to see emotions and how can one find ways to say bring attention to them and to notice them. Is that right? Yeah. So one of the simplest and most direct ways of developing this is just to make a habit of asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Just during the course of the day, every so often, just to bring conscious attention to that, and to just give enough space to look. And often it doesn't take a lot of time at all. It doesn't. It's rather like you can carry a book around with you all day long, but and it doesn't take much effort to sort of stop and open the book, and there's all the words inside. But if you don't open the book, you don't see what's inside it. And so similarly, what we're feeling can be pretty apparent and very close to the surface, but if we don't open the book, then we don't notice. So what I like to recommend in this instance is at the beginning of the day, like I say in the early morning meditation, set the intention quite clearly and consciously that during the course of the day I will make the effort to be observing, attending to the moods that I feel, the flow of mood, and so that in a sense you're putting that program in place at the beginning of the day, saying, okay, I'll use this the events of the day to keep track of this flow of change in emotion, and then you can use particular devices like. You say, okay, whenever I change my posture, whenever I go from walking to sitting, or sitting to standing, or sitting to lying down, I'll make a note of what it is that I'm feeling. Or other practices like one year, Ajahn Amaro was talking a lot about developing mindfulness of doors. We go through a lot of doors in our lives. And so he just made a practice of whenever he went through a door, just noticing what was on his mind, what was the feeling that was there, what was his attention preoccupied with, and so just using something like that, or simply if you're in the process of walking, just walking through a house, or walking down the street, or walking through an office, or down a corridor. Just to set the intention at the start of the day, okay, whenever I'm walking, as I'm walking along, I'll bring my attention to what mood is there, what I'm feeling. So setting up little, schedules for yourself, if you like. And then of course you forget. We get carried away and caught up. But my experience is that if you set that intention, even if you get caught up and carried away here and there, it's still there in the back of the mind. That, every time I was walking I was going to be watching my mood, but here we are, it's 3 p.m, and I've only just remembered for the first time. But at least then you remember. But it does have a powerful effect, my experience is, if you do that, so that then if you create those opportunities or those particular markers in the day, then just a moment, just a few seconds of, okay, what's the mood, what's the feeling right now? And then it's very apparent, oh, I'm really tense, or I'm exhausted. Yeah, how did I miss that? Or like, I'm really hungry, or I'm actually feeling really cranky. And that it's very close to the surface most often. So it doesn't take a lot of effort. But it's just like I said, like opening a book. If you make the effort, it's right there. So you can get creative with how you do things, or set your iPhone or your wristwatch to bleep every 15 minutes whenever you hear a bleep or some kind of impact. Yeah, then it can kind of trigger that. Oh yeah, I should pay attention. Yes.
So my question is the next step. So now I mean, and sometimes it doesn't take that much. You go, I'm really stressed. You're in some situation with someone, for example, and now they're waiting for you to respond. I mean, they've asked you a question, but it was an attacking kind of a thing, and it's like, okay, and I got it, and I know how I feel, and it doesn't feel good. And now I am required to respond to this person. Of course, I'm going to try and make it as kind as I can, but I don't like that feeling in my body, and I don't want that feeling in my body. So, what do you do with that?
Again, could people hear the? No. Okay. So it's a very good question. So she was asking, what is the next step when you can, you know that you've got this feeling, someone is saying something to you, they're attacking you verbally, and you know this is what you're feeling, but you don't like it, and you are uncomfortable with that feeling. What do you do with that, or how do you mindfully respond? Is that? Yeah. So, a very good question. So this happens to me a lot. But not that I'm always being attacked, but it does happen quite regularly. People have strong opinions about how things should and shouldn't be, and what I, should be doing about it. I'm suffering, and it's your responsibility. You need to do something to make me happy. Probably familiar territory for most of us. But in a way, just as I was saying at the very beginning of the opening talk, just to recognize, I'm being attacked verbally, and I have to make some kind of mindful. I want to make some kind of mindful response, and I don't like it. I don't like this situation. This is the feeling: is that I'm being attacked. I'm trying to think of something trying to find a way to respond, and I'm feeling uncomfortable or out of my depth. And just to me, what happens is when I recognize, this is I'm being attacked and I'm supposed to respond, and I really don't like this. Then something happens within me when I say, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. I don't like this feeling. that which recognizes, this is what I didn't want to happen, and I really don't like this. That recognizes this is that I really don't like this feeling. Right there, there's an intuition, an intuiting of the extra space that's present. When we're under that pressure of I've got to do something and I don't like this and why is this happening? Then the mind is locked into self-view. I'm under attack. I've got to say something. And in that simple gesture of, this is I'm being attacked, I don't like this, I've got to say something, how can I resolve this feeling? What's happening is that in that moment, the wisdom faculty of your own heart is recognizing, this is one of those feeling things. They arise and pass away. And that this isn't actually who and what I am. So that you're just allowing yourself to realize that extra space in the system. And, obviously you have to be pretty quick on your feet sometimes, because that you don't have a lot of opportunity to pause on occasion. But just being able to recognize, I really don't like this. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. Then it's not as though there's part of the mind saying, well, so what, get over it. But it's like saying, yes, life does this. Is there something intrinsically wrong with the fact that you don't like it? So that in that moment of recognition, of letting go, then there's in a way there's a quality of acceptance. There's a seeing that even that feeling of I don't like it actually belongs. Do you see what I mean? It's not easy to do. Obviously, practice helps. But just in that, in a way, in that moment, you're not taking it personally. And then, in that little bit of extra room in the exchange, that extra space in the system, then it's much more easy for responses to come from a non-personal place. So it's not coming from, I've got to defend myself, or I've got to make them think different, or I've got to come up with the right answer because I should do. But it's more the moment answering itself. If you understand, if you can see what I mean with that, that it's a non-personal response rather than me reacting. It's difficult to do because the stronger the emotions are, the more the reptile brain is contacted. So it's also acknowledging the feelings of the reptile brain, like, I don't like this, back off. Oh yeah, or the kind of very instinctual reactions. So a lot of it, this kind of process is to do with accepting your own reptile reactions and not being thrown off balance by that, and self-defensiveness or fearfulness or aggression or territory, but just being able to again know those, or this is the these are the instinctual reactions happening, and letting there be some space around that. But my experience of it is that the more that you remember to do that, and just sort of let the intensity of the exchange wash through the space of your awareness, then the more you see, oh, hey, that really worked. Oh, look at that. And then the more that you, it's like riding a bicycle. The more you do it, the easier it is. That make sense?
Listening to what you're saying, the thought came to me as you taking that moment, that maybe the other person can use that moment as well.
Oh yes, yeah. Because if I'm not reacting to you, if I'm not defending myself against you, but if I'm able to come from that place of, oh, she's really upset, and so she's taking that upset feeling and is turning into this attack. And if I'm able to respond to that from a place of spaciousness, then then that acts as a mirror for you. Because rather than where I'm kind of defending myself and saying, "Back off, leave me alone," then that creates more tension and alienation and more aggression. If what is met with is spaciousness, not a kind of non-reactivity, non-responding, but that you're paying attention and you're right there for them, but you're not being triggered by their attack or their emotional flow. Something in that other person is aroused to say, "What am I doing here? I'm really laying it on a bit thick," and that it's like holding up a mirror, and then so it's a great favor to them. Okay, one more, and then we'll have some walking.
Just out of curiosity, you're answering this is a common question: how do we deal with this incoming aversive information and retain our composure? And most of us can't do it. But you're a pro, and you, as it happened, I recently was immersed in the love and kindness section, chapter 9 of the Visuddhimagga. And out of curiosity, I'm wondering if you've ever used any of the techniques to deal with this aversive incoming that are detailed by Buddha Gosha. Giving a gift, imagining that it's your mother,
That might not work for everybody.
What I like most is disassembling the incoming into its aggregates and realize that there's really nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, do you do this? Does that
I've never sort of systematically followed the whole system, but certainly some of those methodologies to a great extent. Yeah, because often it's the that kind of skillful deconstructing or reconfiguring the dynamic. Just like I said, today is not the election day for the squirrels and the turkey vultures. It just reconfigures the dynamic. And how many of you thought, oh, right. And that because it gives a different context to what we're feeling, so that those simple ways of reconfiguring things or changing the dynamic, the setup can be very, very helpful, and that also just in terms of the incoming, we do have a degree of control over the incoming. So we can, if there's one very simple way of dealing with an overwhelm of news and input is just switch off a few of your devices. And it's a very, very simple approach. It's like, don't put yourself in harm's way, as it were. And then it actually gives you a bit more space. Like some people could regard it as, well, that's a simplistic approach, but it's also the kind of thing the Buddha recommended. He said, if you don't wander around in the dark at night time, then you won't find yourself falling into a cesspit or kind of running into guard dogs, because if you don't wander around at night time in the dark, then you can see where you're going. If you wander around in the dark, then every so often you're going to fall into a cesspit or run into a guard dog or get yourself into trouble because you can't see. So that where we dispose ourselves, or where we put our energy, or what we choose to expose ourselves to, there's a certain amount of choice in that. So anyway, it's after 10 now, so I think it might be a good time to have a period of walking meditation. So we've got plenty of space here. There's no other retreats going on, so we've got lots of room around here. So I encourage people for the next half hour to make your way outside and find a stretch of ground about 50, 60 feet long, ideally not crossing anybody else's path, and to use the walking meditation just to use, just as I was describing the rhythm of the breath as a reference point, just to use the rhythm of your feet walking up and down as a reference point. And you can also use this both as an opportunity to sustain the quality of composure while in a more active mode, but also to explore emotions. So you can get creative with this if you like, kind of reflect on Obama in one direction and Romney in the other direction. Or just in one direction just to reflect election, and the other direction to reflect no election. Yeah. Who is being elected, and to let go of the whole thing. A couple of things to mention first, perhaps, so to seed discussion a little. One of the things that can easily come to mind is that we can say, recognizing my own personal feelings, this is just my feeling, it's just my life and my ordinary little world. But we're talking about global issues. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the air, the water, the whole ecosystem. This is a really serious problem. I mean, we've got to really address this. This is really different. This is a whole different magnitude. We gotta. I mean, this isn't just me in my life. This is the whole big thing, right? And so we can then reflect on what I've been saying earlier today, and then assume, well, it doesn't really apply to the big issues. But I would say it exactly applies to the big issues too, because what is happening in that is that we, in that recognition of these larger scale issues that certainly do involve all of us and all the whole ecosystem and the whole living order, but yet in exactly the same way, in that saying, yeah, but this really matters, this is really important, we've created an idea of what's really important. When we've gone out and inhabited that idea, and at that very moment we're missing the feeling that we're experiencing. And so it's not negating that it is extraordinarily important and significant, but what I've been saying about this kind of practice is that, yes, that's extraordinarily important and in an essential and fundamental way, but what's the feeling that's happening here? What's the felt experience of these global issues? Just before I left California in 2010, I did a series of 4 classes on the foundations of mindfulness, the 4 elements, and eco-anxiety. Sort of wove those 3 different pieces together. It's kind of interesting experiment, but it was. I think it's important to recognize that it's not belittling those issues to say, yeah, but what's the feeling happening here? What's my own felt experience of it? It's not saying that doesn't matter. What matters is me and my feeling. It's not that at all. What we're doing is by recognizing, oh, this is the felt experience of that here. This is how this impacts my heart, my life, my being. And then by being able to recognize that and acknowledge that, be in tune with that, then you find the space to react and to work skillfully with the bigger issues. You are able to see more clearly and in a more integrated way how we can be offering something which is helpful and beneficial. So it's actually that spaciousness informs our response and helps it to be more effective. So that in a way it helps us to that awareness of our own feeling and mindfulness and disentanglement from that helps us to relate more effectively to the bigger picture. So that's one thing. And the other thing is often just in conversations with people today and generally, what we often do is we make the mistake of trying to place the ideal me at the center of the picture. Like, the perfect Ajahn Amaro would always be like this, and he'd never be like that. He'd never do this, and he'd always do that. But actually, he doesn't exist. He's not around, and so I've got this one. And so that so often we're in situations dealing with our family or our health or our work or our the largest situations, and that we feel, I don't know what to do, or I know I should let go, or like there was a question someone was saying, I know I should let go, but I can't. It's too difficult, it's too personal, it's too intense. In that instance, what I would always say, what I was just saying a moment ago was to this person was, well, the perfect you would be completely composed and clear-minded and would be utterly unattached, but she doesn't exist. And what we're experiencing is this person who is in the middle of a situation and finds it very hard, impossible to let go. But that's where we are. It's not like I was saying, you have to start from where you start from where you are, to use Pema Chodron's expression. Or like last night, I was quoting that a well-known joke that a traveller, a family are going through the back lanes, travelling in the countryside, and they're a bit lost. They don't know the way, and they stop and ask a local oh, excuse me, we're say using the English environment, say, oh, we're trying to get to Barnstaple, and then the person next up says, oh, Barnstaple. Well, we to get to Barnstaple. Well, I wouldn't start from here if I was you. And we laugh. It's crazy, but we do that all the time. It's like that's what we do. We neglect the fact that this is where we are. This is where we're starting from, and so it's not a matter of where we should be or how we could be, but where we are. And so one of the most helpful teachings that Ajahn Chah gave on this area is that 50 to 70% of the practice is knowing that we should let go and not being able to. So that okay, this is stupid to hang on. This is I know I'm really wrapped up in this, and this is painful to hang on, but this is really stupid. This is really stupid. It's not happening, is it? But the mysterious and wonderful thing is that the very presence of that awareness that recognizes this is really stupid, and that recognizes, it would be wise to let go, but I can't. That very awareness is the thing that helps to erode and loosen the clinging, so that it's that recognition of not trying to inhabit the perfect me who's somewhere else and somebody else, but starting from where we are and not looking down on that. So anyway, we got time for a few questions. There's a hand, yes.
A couple of years ago, you taught a class called "I'm Right, You're Wrong," and you started out by chanting the Metta Sutta, and that's on dharmaseed.org. And I found that at some point after I experienced you, and I find that if I listen to that in the morning, the first time I listen to it, my mind is crazy, and the second time I listen to it, I'm a little more calm, and the third time I listen to it, I'm centered, and my day goes completely differently. If I start there, you were talking about anchoring or grounding, because all day long I notice how far off I am from what my ideals are. And I'm hoping at the end of the day, perhaps you might chant that for us, but I don't know if you can. But even if you can't, I recommend it to everyone. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been really a lifesaver for me.
Very good. Yeah. There was the Metta Sutta. We'll finish with that in a few minutes. It's the one that begins, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness. So that's a good way to start your day. I'm impressed you listened to it 3 times over. So, I'm in the process of getting that day-long transcribed. So hopefully that'll be turned into a little book next year. Yes.
Last night I sensed a little tension around the idea of if a spiritual leader should express his own political views or should ignore it in order not to offend anyone in the crowd. And I wondered just what your thoughts about it. I also want to say that I'm really missing the seasonal days here with you, long days, and my attached part want to ask, are you ever coming back?
He's there.
Well, to respond to the 2 pieces of your question, actually, for Buddhist monastics, we are forbidden by our rule to take sides politically and to promote particular political parties. We can promote integrity and wisdom and goodness, but it's particularly in Thailand, they're very, very strict. Socially, the society really looks to the monastic order to be non-partisan. And if any particular monastery starts to take sides, what will happen is that people stop offering alms food, so that they get the message pretty quickly. And I feel that's extremely skillful, because it's very easy to take sides. But a monastery is supposed to be a place that's a spiritual sanctuary. And that's one of the most beautiful things, that you can find people who are side by side, who are arch conservatives or very liberal or green people, and they're all so happily elbow to elbow, and they can appreciate the teachings, and the teachings can help them in very direct ways. And that so that a monastery should be an open center, or like Spirit Rock should be an open center that welcomes everybody, regardless of of political disposition. So I try, in the way I speak, to be as non-partisan as possible. I'm also aware of the audience that I'm talking to. And so, but it's also important to respect that people whom we might love to hate, that they do also have wholesome and noble attributes within them that we can edit out of the picture. And similarly, the people who we love to love can have aspects of them that are not beautiful, or not worthy, or not respectable. So that I feel is an important principle, and certainly as a monastic we're expected to follow that mode. In terms of visiting here, it's what your comment or your question makes me think of someone who goes on holiday to a beautiful place. Oh, this is incredible! This is fantastic! This is so amazing! And they're already worrying about whether they'll have time to come back again next year. Like day one of the holiday, they've still got 2 weeks ahead of them, and they're making themselves miserable because they're worried about whether they can get it again next year. You know, and I've seen this happen in my own family, where deep anxiety about whether we'll be able to rent the same house next time. So therefore, you're making yourself miserable. So I would say, carpe diem. Seize the day that you got me at the moment. So make hay while the sun shines, because
But it's almost over.
It's almost over. Yeah. So, but that's life. We never know. We never know what's round the next bend. We never know what the opportunities are going to be here. So rather than worrying too much or fretting too much about what the future might offer, then it's important that we take advantage of the moment without clinging. Kiss the joy as it flies, as they say. Okay, one last one. Yeah.
It's so lovely to be with you. Thank you for being here. Can you give us any news of Ajahn Sumedho, his well-being, whether he's teaching at all? I don't know if his location is secret or...
So she's asking, your name's Kathy, is that right?
Mary.
Mary, excuse me. Mary was asking about Ajahn Sumedho's welfare and whereabouts. So his location is not secret. He is living at a monastery called Ratanawan in Korat province. That's about 3 hours east and a little north of Bangkok. And it's a monastery that's at the foot of a kind of table mountain, which has got a very ancient forest on the top called, and it was the first national park in Thailand. It's called Khao Yai, and it's a very well protected and wonderfully rich forest. So it has lots of wild animals like elephants, tigers, wild buffalo, and things. And so he lives in a little forest monastery at the foot of the mountain. There's a number of other monasteries that are there. So you often get interesting large creatures wandering through. You might think, oh, dang those termites. He is like, dang those elephants. They make such a mess. So, and they've built him a very delightful kuti, like a hut, which is about half the size of this building. Very nice. So he has incredible accommodations, Karma. He does. So it's a two-story kuti with a covered walking meditation path, and beside this lake.
Oh.
And also the abbot of the monastery, Ajahn Amaro, is an Australian monk, and he's very protective. So the whole way it's set up, you can't actually there's no way you can drop in on Ajahn Sumedho, but he's there, and He's very skilled as a property developer, Ajahn Amaro, so it's very beautifully arranged. Also, many of you might know that there's been a huge amount of redevelopment in China, particularly cities like Shanghai. So many old Chinese buildings have been demolished, so all the woodwork and brasswork and door fittings and window fittings are on the market. So Ajahn Amaro did a little maneuvering and managed to acquire a whole array of doors and windows and shutters with all this old Chinese woodwork and brasswork. And many of you might not know, but ever since childhood, Ajahn Sumedho was very deeply fascinated by China. He was actually, when he was a teenager, he had a place to go and study at St. John's University in Shanghai when he was 14. Not what the average 14-year-old in Seattle was aiming for. But he was heartbroken when there was the Communist Revolution and he was no longer able to go to China. But he grew up loving all things Chinese. And so he now lives in this beautiful kuti in Thailand with all this kind of Chinese fixtures, ancient Chinese fixtures and fittings. Also, health-wise, he's 78 now. And many of you might know he always had a swollen foot. He had lymphedema in his right leg. And that has pretty much been cured. He'd had an incalculable number of different treatments and nothing ever worked. And finally, at the beginning of this year, he got encouraged to visit this specialist in lymphedema in Bangkok. And it's a Thai doctor who was also trained in Japan. And he developed this technique of lymphatic drainage massage and tight bandaging, tourniquet bandaging. And the treatment has worked. So when I saw him in January, and he had to use a walking stick, a cane, the whole time. And his feet were numb. He had no sensation in the soles of his feet, so he was very unsteady on his feet. And he needed someone to help him to stand up, sit down. So they looked pretty rough. But then since that time, he had this treatment. I saw him again in June. No walking stick, and he has the sensation back in his feet, and his feet are regular sized. They're trim. So. And he looks about 15 years younger, so he's greatly enjoying his retirement. He doesn't need a secretary anymore because every invitation to teach is answered with no. So, and the last 3 months or so, he's just been staying in his kuti, and a monk would bring him his food once a day, and he just stays there and communes with the forest, and happy as Larry, as they say. So it's having a great retirement. And and no commitments for the future. So we are in the process of putting, for his 80th birthday, presuming that he lives that long, we are putting together collected teachings. So all the different books of his teachings, and then various articles, interviews and such like that have appeared in An Inquiring Mind or The Middle Way or Forest Sangha newsletter. So it'll be about 7 volumes altogether. And so that myself and Ajahn Sucitto are currently pulling all that together. So, of course, Ajahn Sumedho himself is utterly indifferent to his own published word, but doesn't matter. It's not for him; it's for everybody else. So that's happening, and so we aim to get that done in time for his 80th birthday of July 2014. So I think that's enough for today. We'll finish with the Metta Sutta by popular demand. And so then you can just compose yourselves and just let yourself listen to the sound of these words, and then let it wash over you, and to take this as an opportunity, as a time to just let the dialogues and the practice of today just soak into the system. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not